Welcome back to Terrifying 10. Utah is full of some breathtaking scenery. It is also full of some people who make such poor decisions that it takes away their breath permanently. Without further ado, I am proud to introduce to you 10 people who won themselves a Darwin Award in Utah. Number 10, Dynamite Rancher. In May 2009, Brett, 59, found a stash of dynamite in a shed on his 5,000 acres of property, which was located 3 miles away from a rocket testing site. Details about his stash are few and far between. Chief Deputy Kevin Potter said, "Whether the dynamite was his or whatever, that's yet to be determined. Whatever its origins, the rancher was alarmed and had a good reason to be. Old dynamite sweats nitroglycerin, and once it sweats, it is very unstable and can pop anytime. This well-known fact was indubitably known by the rancher. But this stash of flash was something that he felt he could deal with. The rancher removed the dynamite from the shed, placed it in a field of knee-high grass, backed away about 40 yards, and fired a shotgun at it. The dynamite's response was to send shrapnel back at the rancher, and the shrapnel scored a solid hit to the man's head. I wonder what gets into a man's head to make him shoot at a high explosive. I guess the answer is shrapnel." Number 9, Disco Dork. In June 1999, paramedics were called to a nightclub where a young man had lost consciousness on the dance floor. Bystanders said, one minute he was dancing, and the next he was lying on the floor turning blue. The paramedics determined that the man had suffered a heart attack. His skin was blue from lack of oxygen. Sadly, he died en route to the hospital. In the ER, the true case of death was discovered when they removed his personal effects. It turned out that he had strapped a roll of quarters to his leg in the hopes that making his equipment appear larger. Unfortunately, the quarters were tied with surgical tubing, which had cut off circulation to his leg. Apparently, the lack of blood flow, combined with the exertion of dancing, triggered his heart attack. Moral of the story, if this guy's brain had been bigger, he'd still be alive. Number 8, Filler Up. A man only known as Uncle Bill had been driving fuel trucks and delivering fuel to the airport for years. When one morning, as he was approaching the main gate, 2 men in a smaller tank truck waved him down. Being a nice guy, he stepped out of his truck to see what the trouble was. They pulled a gun on him and told him to fill their tank with the fuel from his. Not wanting to risk his life, he proceeded to do so. Mind you, the side of the tanker was emblazoned with the business name and exactly what kind of fuel was inside the tank. After their tank was topped off, they warned him to back off, and they began to fill the truck's gas tank with the same fuel, using a coffee can. Airplane fuel is very dangerous in a car's gas tank. Uncle Bill calmly stated, "You really shouldn't do that." They replied rudely with a shot to his leg. When they were through, they hopped in the cab and started the engine and drove away. Uncle Bill shuffled himself and his wounded leg to safety and turned just in time to watch the truck explode 20 feet away. Next time someone tells you you really shouldn't do that, it might be best to listen to them. Number 7, the ultimate rope swing. A huge rope swing made popular by a YouTube video caused the death of one man in Utah in 2013. The video shows people climbing up to the top of the arch, tying themselves into a rope secured to the arch, and then running and jumping and swinging. Sounds fun, right? Well, if you have the proper safety measures, I'm sure it would be a blast. However, Kyle, 22, did not take all the factors into account when he attempted this. He made the climb up, tied his rope, and made sure his harness was attached properly. His only downfall would be his downfall. He jumped, and instead of swinging like in the video, he smacked into the ground. Kyle had forgotten to make sure his rope was the proper length. Instead of swinging freely, his rope was so long it did not do anything but attach to him. The rope swing is now shut down for commercial trips, but if you're feeling brave enough, you can still attempt this rope swing by yourself. Just don't be like Kyle and make sure that your rope is the proper length. Number 6, car chase. In April 2021, a hit and run was called into Utah County Sheriff's Office. The male driver, who was driving a Chevy Silverado, fled the scene. Utah County Sheriff's Office deemed the driver a safety risk due to his erratic driving, and the pursuit began. The man in the truck was traveling from 60 to 80 miles per hour. For an unknown reason, the Silverado suddenly veered to the left off the road. He attempted to overcorrect to the right and drove right off the side of the road. That's when he ran into the tree. It is unknown if he was wearing his seatbelt at the time of the crash. However, police reported seeing him clutching his Darwin Award, even though the impact ended his life. Talk about an abrupt end to a car chase. Number 5. Catapult. Jeffrey had a problem. Some of the trees on his property were getting dangerously close to the power lines. And no, this story surprisingly doesn't involve electricity other than the power lines being in the way. Jeffrey was trying to be a responsible homeowner and trim the branches away from the power lines. So he got in his boom truck, lifted himself up, and even tied a rope to the tree and the boom in an attempt to keep the limbs away from said power lines. While trimming the tree, the rope broke, and Jeffrey was promptly catapulted out of the boom and onto a pile of wood. Whoops! So much for safety measures. Jeffrey was then taken to the hospital, where he later passed from his injuries. Number 4. Floating the river. In April 2010, 2 men decided they were going to do something they had never done before. Making a log raft and floating it 50 miles down the Narrows. They didn't notify rangers about their plans or try to obtain any permits. Park Services said even if they had, their request would have been denied due to the dangers involved. The men set out anyways. They had no cold water gear with them or life vests, and the water in the Narrows is very deep and has been known to move at a rapid pace. Oh, and it was only 40 degrees at the time of their trip. Well, the 2 men's bodies were eventually found, one at the end of the Narrows, the other 2.5 miles further downstream. Their log raft? Well, from the looks of it, they never made one. Their whole plan was a big gamble. They took that gamble, and all they won was a Darwin Award. Number 3. The first and only rappel. For some, rappelling down a huge rock wall is awe-inspiring. For one man, he just couldn't resist trying to go down one of the rock walls in Zion. Yoshi, 74, took a trip with his wife, 61, and they decided to rappel in the subway, a popular and demanding canyon route. Yoshi had no rappelling experience and bypassed a more gentle descent down a rock slab for a vertical descent that left him unable to use his feet to maintain traction with the wall. Yoshi was left dangling by his rope in his harness. His wife attempted to free him, but was unsuccessful. She then left him to go get help. Rangers weren't able to get a helicopter to the man until the following morning. Poor Yoshi was left hanging on the rope, and he couldn't for the life of him stay upright, I guess. He ended up hanging upside down all night. People are not like bats and cannot hang upside down for prolonged periods of time, lest their blood pools in their heads. This is exactly what happened to Yoshi. By skipping the easy spot for a harder one, with no experience, he risked his life and lost it, but found a Darwin Award. Number 2, red light stop, green light go. Is it just me, or are those motorized scooters popping up everywhere? In case you're unfamiliar with them, basically you download an app that allows you to rent the scooter for a specific period of time, and then you are on your way. And the best part is you don't have to push it. You just stand and let the motor do all the work for you. Well, one man in Salt Lake City really was letting it do all the work for him, including looking out for red lights, which it can't do, by the way. It's a scooter, not a self-driving Tesla. Well, the man was coming up to an intersection and darn it, red light. Normally, one would stop and wait for the green light, indicating it is safe to go. But no. This man just kept on going, ran the red light, and was in turn hit by a car who had a green light. The man was taken to the hospital where he passed and never had the chance to ride a scooter again. Unless they have those scooters up in heaven, which honestly wouldn't surprise me. Today's bonus is brought to you by a man who had a little too much Christmas spirit. 57-year-old Randall lived in a home with 2 roommates, his friend and his friend's son. One evening, Randall had a few too many Christmas spirits, if you know what I mean, and ended up stumbling into the Christmas tree. So his roommate and the son helped poor Randall out of the tree and escorted him back to his room to hopefully sleep the intoxication off. The roommate and his son then went outside for a quick smoke break when they heard what sounded like a gun going off. They turned and saw Randall firing at them, getting off 16 shots before the roommate and his son finally tackled Randall down, pinning him to the ground until police arrived. Randall was eventually charged with 2 counts of attempted murder, 1 count of possession of a firearm by a restricted person, 16 counts of felony discharge of a firearm, 1 count of carrying a dangerous weapon while under the influence, and 1 count of intoxication. Merry Christmas, Randall. Maybe next year, have a little less Christmas spirit. Or spirits, to be more precise. Number 1. First in line. Being first in line at Starbucks in the morning is the best. One Utah man decided after he was done street racing, he would be first in line for Starbucks. And he made it, just not the way he expected. Around 2 a.m., police responded to a call of multiple vehicles involved in street racing. Upon arrival, they all fled. One of the men that fled apparently needed a little bit of coffee. He lost control of his vehicle somehow and ran into a Starbucks. He was promptly ejected from his car, and just like that, he was the first customer of the day. It is unclear what he wanted to order, however, due to the fact that he died on impact with the building. Maybe next time, a slower approach to the drive-thru. Congratulations, street racer, on crashing your way into a Darwin. I hope you enjoyed some of these Darwin Awards from Utah. Thanks for watching, thanks for liking, thanks for subbing. And if you haven't yet checked out the Evolve merch, I highly recommend it. I will leave a comment pinned below with the link. Thanks again. Stay safe, friends.